Your divorce was not an accident. It happened for a divine reason. This message isn't just a coincidence. It came across your path today because it was meant to happen. Get ready to explore the deeper reasons behind divorce, the spiritual significance it holds, and how it connects to God's plan following a separation. Absolutely, this is really important for your journey. It's not just going to open your eyes, it'll also bring a sense of peace to your spirit. Got it? Let's make sure we're on the same page. Sometimes, what seems like brokenness is really part of God's plan in our relationships. Your pain matters. Your heartbreak holds a deeper meaning. If you stick around, I'll show you how to discover God's guidance during a divorce and how to truly heal afterwards through faith. Before we dive into why that relationship had to end, let's first figure out who you really are. You're not just someone wandering through life without purpose, bumping into things without any real significance. You're chosen, set apart, and dedicated to something greater. Right from the moment you took your first breath, your life was already set on a path with a special purpose. Maybe you didn't realize it. Maybe your family hasn't noticed it. But you know, heaven has always known exactly who you are. The chosen ones aren't picked because of their status, education, wealth, or looks. No, the chosen ones are selected by God due to their spirit, because of the divine seed that's been planted within them. You went through a lot, didn't you? Facing challenges, dealing with rejection, experiencing loss, and feeling abandoned. It's all part of your journey. Your pain had a purpose. Each scar on your soul tells a story about your journey. That's why your relationships seem different from others. That's why your heartbreak feels unique. You really dive deep when it comes to love. When you connect, it's all about that spiritual vibe. You really give it your all. That's why when it breaks, it really hits you deep inside. That's also why God doesn't allow just anyone to stick around in your life. Your spirit is truly special. Your calling is too significant for partnerships that aren't balanced. Have you ever realized that your life hasn't really followed the typical path? You've always felt that urge to reach for more, while others seem to be okay with just settling. Even if you couldn't put it into words, you felt it deep down. There was something unique about you. That difference isn't about pride. It's all about the purpose. It seems like God has been working on you, shaping and refining you along the way. It's all about shaping your life and letting go of things and people that just don't vibe with your purpose. Lots of people feel a significant emotional weight since they find themselves in places that just don't resonate with them spiritually. You came into this world surrounded by chaos, not to accept it, but to rise above it. You've experienced betrayal, abandonment, confusion, and heartbreak. But through everything, God has been shaping your identity, not as someone who's been wronged, but as a vessel. When you get picked, your spiritual vibe is really elevated. You really pick up on things that most people just overlook. You see things that others overlook. That's not being paranoid. That's all about having good judgment. Your spirit responds to energy, truth, deception, and even those moments of false intimacy. That's why you often found it hard to settle in relationships that seemed great on the surface, but had some hidden issues underneath. Your soul just couldn't find peace, because deep down, your spirit sensed that something was off. And when God noticed you having a hard time letting go, He decided to step in Himself. You know, a lot of folks believe that being chosen is all about blessings and being in the spotlight. Absolutely, there's definitely favor. But hey, before the good stuff happens, there are usually some tough times, right? Before the glory, there's often a bit of a divide. Before coming together in a divine way, there's a time for divine solitude. To really step into your full power, God needs to clear away anything that's blocking your vision, even if it means letting go of the person you care about the most. Being chosen means that your relationships are looked after in a special way. Sometimes God closes doors that we just can't bring ourselves to shut on our own. He'll cut off connections that seem like soulmates just to keep you safe from emotional pain. Hey, just so you know, this isn't about punishment. You're safe and looked after. Your breakup didn't break you for a reason. It brought you into the world. I've heard some of you wondering, but why did it have to hurt so much? Let me tell you, the love you gave was real. You shared genuine love with someone who just wasn't ready for it. Since your love was so deeply connected to your spirit, losing it felt like a part of you had died inside. But God isn't finished with you yet. He let it happen because that relationship was never supposed to be what defines you. It was supposed to show you the one who was picked. You shouldn't be tied to someone who doesn't see the value in what you bring to the table. It's not worth it to struggle for love that holds you back from growing. You're not here to downsize yourself for someone else's ease. You're invited to step into your full spiritual authority. If someone can't walk alongside you in that, it's best to let them go. Even with all the history you have together, people might view your divorce or separation as a failure. But you know, the spirit world views it as freedom. Sometimes it feels like God pulls us away from certain things to help us find our true selves, focus on our purpose, and eventually connect with someone who's just right for us. But first, He needed to show you yourself. You're not just picked, you've been chosen. You really shine in tough times. Light can't really thrive in partnerships that just sap its energy. It has to rise. Sometimes, to move up, we need to let go. Just a little reminder for you. You're not broken, you know. You're starting to wake up. Everything that didn't go as planned actually turned out in your favor. If you've been feeling a bit lonely, like no one really gets you, or just out of sync with everything around you, it might be because you don't quite fit in here. You really stood out. Your spiritual identity really sets the stage for all the amazing things God is going to show you in your life. Hang in there, because what's on the horizon is going to help you understand everything you've been through. So, let's talk about why the relationship had to come to an end. The one who was picked. How about we have an honest chat today? It's a deep, uncomfortable truth that can also feel liberating. That relationship, the one you keep going over in your head, the one you shed tears for, hoped for, and maybe even pleaded with God to rescue. It was time for it to come to a close. It's not that you weren't worthy or that you messed up. It's just that God noticed something you might have missed. When He says enough, there's just no way anything in the universe can go against that divine command. So, when you're picked, your connections really matter. It's not just about having someone to share your feelings with or finding comfort in their presence. They're like assignments, alignments, and spiritual agreements. If you're walking alongside someone who just doesn't have the spiritual maturity, integrity, or the same sense of purpose as you, it's likely that God will let that relationship fall apart. Sometimes it happens out of the blue. Other times it can be tough, but it's always with a clear intention. It seems like a lot of you stuck around in a relationship that had already run its course emotionally, even before it officially ended. You could sense the change, the gap, the spiritual disconnect, but your heart just wasn't ready to let go. You kept working on fixing that soul tie. God was already trying to break through. When God noticed you having a tough time with what needed to be done, He stepped in and took care of it for you. The breakup wasn't caused by anyone else. It felt like a little bit of heaven stepped in. It might seem like everything in your life is broken and can't be fixed right now. But you know what? God really knows how to rebuild things. He goes beyond just fixing what's broken. He brings a fresh perspective. He doesn't just fix up wounds. He brings everything back together. When you put your trust in Him, you start to realize that your divorce wasn't the end, but more like a fresh start from above. When you pray, fast, and meditate on His Word, you'll notice your spirit starts to sync up with His will. It's like the pieces of your life begin to come together in a new way, creating a picture that's even more beautiful than what you had before. Just a reminder that healing is all about getting back in touch with who you really are. It seems like a lot of you might have felt like you lost a part of yourselves in your marriage. You got so wrapped up in being a spouse that you lost sight of who you are as an individual, and even more importantly, who you are in God. This season of healing is a great chance to get back in touch with who you really are. Take a moment to ask God to help you remember your gifts, your calling, and what makes you unique. Embrace who you are as His chosen one. You'll come to see that your worth isn't tied to that relationship, all thanks to your faith. Your identity has always been shaped by His love and His purpose. Healing can really be influenced by the community and the faith we share. Hey, don't shut yourself off from others when you're hurting. Sometimes you'll find that people come into your life just when you need a boost, bringing along encouragement, wisdom, and strength. Hang out with people who lift you up and bring you closer to Him. Feel free to share your story, even if it's still a work in progress. Sometimes the pain you're working through can actually inspire someone else who really needs it. When you give to others, you'll find that God gives back to you too. This connection based on faith really boosts healing. But most importantly, those who are chosen to heal after a divorce through faith need to be patient. Change doesn't happen in a flash. Just like it takes time for physical wounds to heal and for scars to fade, the wounds of the heart also need time to mend and rebuild. Some days you'll feel really strong, and other days you might feel like you're falling apart. Don't overlook the journey. Even on those days when you feel like nothing's happening, God is still at work. Even when you can't see any progress, just remember that faith is there to remind you that healing is happening behind the scenes. You'll definitely encounter some testing moments along the way. The enemy might try to plant doubts in your mind, telling you that you're not good enough, that you'll always feel broken, and that love is something you'll never find again. But faith really makes a bigger impact. Faith tells us that you're chosen, that you're being renewed every single day, and that God's promises for your life are still a definite yes and amen. Hold on to that truth, no matter how noisy the enemy's lies get. Healing after divorce through faith goes beyond simply moving on. It's all about leveling up. It's all about elevating ourselves in wisdom, boosting our strength, and enhancing our spiritual authority. The pain that had you down on your knees will turn into the story that helps others rise from their struggles. What seemed like the end is actually the start of your ministry, your calling, and your destiny. This is the amazing exchange. Beauty in ashes, joy in mourning, praise in heaviness. Hey everyone, if you're still feeling the burden of your divorce today, why not take a moment to let it go and place it at the feet of the Lord? Let it go with a prayer. Just reach out to Him and let Him handle it for you. Healing isn't about acting like you're not in pain. It's all about having faith that God can transform your pain into healing. When the healing wraps up, you might not even recognize who you are anymore. You'll realize that the brokenness was just the ground where your faith grew and turned into something truly powerful. So, 1 John 4 verse 1 reminds us, "Dear friends, do not believe every spirit, but test the spirits to see whether they are from God." It's important to check out what comes your way in life. Sometimes, what we think of as home is just a kind of dysfunction we've gotten used to. That's why God had to wrap things up. He's inviting you into peace instead of confusion, into purpose rather than delay, and into purity instead of manipulation. If you're still hanging on emotionally, going over the past, checking their page, and hoping for closure, I've got to say closure doesn't come from them. Closure comes from God, you know? It's when you realize that accepting His no can actually mean a bigger yes for you. If God says no, just know there's a divine yes out there for you. But you can't grab onto the new if you're still clinging to the fake. Let's not bring back what God has already put to rest. Quit asking for things to go back to how they were when He's trying to guide you in a new direction. In John 15 verse 2, it says, "Every branch in me that doesn't bear fruit, He takes away, and every branch that does bear fruit, He prunes, so that it may bear more fruit." That breakup was more like pruning than punishment. That heartbreak was more like a lesson, not something to be embarrassed about. The fruit that comes from it will show that it was all worth it. You know, chosen one, you haven't lost love at all. You figured things out. You've picked up some wisdom. You've really grown spiritually in a way that nothing else could have shown you. When the moment comes, and you feel complete and your heart is in a good place, God will bring someone into your life who not only desires you, but also respects your journey. Just hang tight until then and let it go. Let it go completely. Just trust Him completely. What's coming is way better than anything you've left in the past. Jeremiah 29 verse 11 says, "For I know the plans I have for you, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future." Your story isn't over yet. You're just starting your journey to greatness.